Hello everyone, so today I want to do a little bit of review about my account. Hopefully it will help you a little bit in building your characters. Let's start first with Lila. My Lila is built to just nuke the enemy. So here's her stats, and the skill sets I use is critical damage and critical rate. If you don't have this gear set yet, you can actually use the free attack set that you get on pre-mission briefing. I can show you here on my Ginga. These gears are free. You can get it from pre-mission briefing stage 6. It's up to you if you want to rush it or not, but it's kinda not worth to rush it. You can just take it slow, but if you really need it, then yeah, feel free to rush it if you want. And I use my Lila to fight Centaur, or sometimes in PvP to kill Ryza, since she is kinda tanky, and any other bosses that I can beat using her. And yeah, she is really useful. Okay, so next is Hearin. I used her mostly in PvP, and yeah, with this build actually she is still useful in PvE as well, so feel free to use this build for PvE and PvP. I maxed her S2 and S3 because we only need her healing. You can just leave this alone. The recovery probably not that worth to raise, except because you have limited resource, about 5-star chips, so yeah, make sure you just raise the S2 and S3 if you want. My gear is actually using counter engine. This is really good in PvP because if you use counter engine in PvP and the enemy decide to cleave, your Hearin might be able to cut in between the turns and heal your team first before they took too much damage. And of course immunity to prevent debuff, especially when you are fighting against Milvus. And here's her substats. I prefer to add all speed on her because yeah, she needs to be fast. If she is fast, you can heal even more often, and it's really good. Okay, that's all about Hearin. Next is Sirius. I used my Sirius full speed because, you know, her skills scale with speed also. And this is her gear sets. To build Sirius, you just need to get all the speed that you can. Damage is kinda secondary, but it's nice to have more damage also. When you're fighting against team without Timmy, usually you can beat someone, you can kill someone first with Sirius, like Rory maybe, but usually Rory is paired with Timmy, but who knows. Sirius actually have a more base speed than Timmy. You can check here, her base speed is 127 and Timmy base speed is only 119, so there's a high chance that your Sirius might be faster. But yeah, it's still kinda hard to do it. But if she managed to outspeed Timmy, then the cliff is pretty much fail and you have a high chance to win the battle. And Sirius is also useful in a lot of places, especially when you are searching for equipment. You can use her on Harpist and raids. Also for Lava Reef, yeah, she is useful in a lot of content, so if you have her, make sure to build her. It's really worth it. Okay, next is Ginga. Ginga is useful when you still don't have Lila. But if you already have Lila, to be honest, Ginga become kinda not that useful anymore. You can still use both of them together, to be honest, in Centaur to kill it faster. But if you already have Lila, I suggest you build other characters first before building another Ginga, because it will be kinda useless. I'm just I'm just placing the gear on her temporarily because I can still use her on Centaur. But if you already have Lila, you can just build other characters first. Okay, next is Della. Della is really good in PvP, so she can counters. Just make star or skills if you can. All of them are good. And for the gear, I usually post and immunity. Immunity as usual to prevent debuffs, especially for Milvus, and riposte to give her a higher chance to counter. For her stats, some people build her with full damage, but I prefer her to be more tanky. So I'll build her with HP, and HP, because of course her skill scale with HP. Both of the damage scales with HP. So yeah, just slap all HP gear you have on her and she'll be good to go. Next is Maika. This is actually not a good set for her, but this is free and this use is HP, so I just slap it on her for no reason. If you want to build her properly, probably using HP sets is a lot better. But yeah, if you already can do Maiden, you can just use HP set on her instead of Lifesteal. Lifesteal is actually not that useful. And to be honest, I will rather use HP here compared to defense, but I just don't have it right now. If you have it, I suggest you build her close to Della, but forget about the riposte because it's only 20%, it's not worth it. Just slap her with 2 HP and immunity as usual, and you're good to go. Next is Milvus. I use her as my fodder farmer. If you don't know what fodder is, it's basically a team like this. Yep, usually I use Milvus like this to farm and level up the lower level characters. She can solo most of the content because her S2 actually ignore the elements and it's always the advantage element, so you can pretty much use her on all content, all map, and make her solo, except the current event, and the X3 is kinda hard. Milvus can solo that. But yeah, you can also use her for cleave in PvP if you don't have Rory. Oh, and her gear is this. I used speed on her and critical. You actually can ignore the speed if you only want her to cleave, but having more speed in fodder farming is actually more useful. And to make sure she can also follows with her S2 after her S3, because her S3 actually increase her action bar. So yeah, having more speed is also good for Milvus. Okay, I'm gonna leave Tempo and Rosemary corrects for later because they are just a units that I raise for fun. Let's start with Chihaya first. Chihaya is actually very useful for defense break. Yeah, defense break is really useful when you are going to do Centaur or any bosses which need a single target damage. So here's her gear. I use speed and status accuracy for her because if she gets a lot of turn, you have a high chance to defense break more often. And also status accuracy just to make sure she lands her defense break. If you want to build her at first, you can just leave the guns, the HP and the shield at lower level and make sure to increase the speed and her status accuracy first, and then increase the rest once you get lots of spare resources. And if you don't have Chihaya, you can actually use Foxy. You can just use the same gear on her, so just use this gear if you want, but I already have another set of gear for her. It's the same, you just want her to be fast, so increase her speed and her status accuracy. Also, if you are having problem with her being killed too often, you can just raise her defense and HP. But if it's not really needed, you can just not do that first and focus on a more important character to raise. Next is Alice. Alice is actually kinda complex to build, because if you want to use her in PvP, you need to have a high speed. If you want to use her in PvE, you need to adjust her speed to make sure she moves after a defense breaker land a debuff, land their defense break. So for Alice, I have two sets. Here she has lower speed because I want her to move after Chihaya lands the defense break, and here she has a high speed because I want to use her in PvP for Cliff. Yeah, so yeah, for her gear, you actually just want to add speeds and a little bit of tankiness. You don't need to max this because it's not really useful to have her being tanky or anything. You just want her to be fast. So yeah, make sure to have a speed. The immunity actually not that important. You can just set whatever as long as they have speed. Okay, that's all about Alice. And next is Morris. For Morris, actually I'll build her with speed, because if she is fast, she can heal more often. And if you use her S2 on herself, she can actually do unlimited healing, because she will only spam S2, S3, S2, S3. And you want her to be built with speed, and if you can add some HP on her, because her heal scales with her HP. That's how you build Morris. It's easy, and she's very useful in lots of content. The last unit that I'm gonna talk about is Roko. For Roko, you want her to have a high speed and status accuracy, more or less similar to Chihaya. Make sure she can land lots of poison on your enemies. You use her on bosses mostly, like Harpies and Maiden. Other than that, she's not that much useful in PvP, but in PvE she's really good. So yeah, I think that's all about my characters that I want to talk about. Yeah, that's all for now, and I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.